Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with British-Nigerian jazz singer Ola Onabulé. We caught up with him in late April 2020 to talk about this new coronavirus world we live in without live jazz and the obstacles it has given us all. He talked about his latest studio album and how he has built a very solid music career through a relentless schedule in both the recording studio and as an international touring performer. He has always been interested in crossing cultural and musical boundaries. His path to today is a fascinating one in this surreal world we live in. So, enjoy.
How are you holding up over in your neck of the woods?
It's surreal, that's for sure. But I think we're kind of coming to terms with it all now. It's been 5 weeks in the making, So we're beginning to find a rationale for it all. And you? How's it going down over where you are?
Same way, man. It's been like a month and a half. I mean, I think one of the weirdest things out of all of this is when there's a president or a prime minister or somebody that gets it. And Boris got it over there, right? Didn't he go in the hospital?
He did.
Yeah, and he was in intensive care. So, I mean, that's weird when that kind of thing happens.
I know. I must say that I started off with a kind of mild skepticism, and then you started knowing people personally who got it, and then you saw the Prime Minister get it, and then it really ratcheted up a gear, and you thought, oh, this is real, and it's scary, and, you just hope that the right people have the right answers for it.
Well, again, thank you for taking a minute out. I guess my first question to you is, what have you been doing as far as, like, anything artistically speaking, creatively induced to kind of deal with all of this?
I've been busier than ever, strangely enough. I've done a couple of collaborative things with the UMO Helsinki Jazz Orchestra. So this is a Finnish big band who I was due to be doing some concerts with throughout April. And obviously the concerts couldn't happen. So they came up with the great idea of everyone recording their parts for a couple of the songs that we would have played in our concerts individually at home, remotely, and then they would, assemble the whole thing. And we've posted those on social media, and that's done well. I've also been asked by Simone, the microphone company that endorsed me, to record a couple of acoustic songs for them. So they forced me to pick up my guitar again and start playing, which I haven't done for a few decades. And various other collaborations, so writing songs with people that we're going to present remotely. So it's in a strange way, it's been quite busy. I've kept myself occupied that way.
Let me go back to the beginnings of your life. I know, where were you born and raised, and kind of how did you get involved with music?
I was born in the UK. I was born in London, and we stayed in London for about 7 years. I was born to Nigerian parents, and so after the age of about 7, they were ready to go back home. They'd only come to the UK to study, so we headed back to Nigeria, and I was there for 10 years, and then sent back to the UK to be educated as a lawyer. And somewhere in the middle of my law studies, I discovered music. I discovered soul and jazz music, and turned my back on the law. So that's more or less how it happened. There'd not been any musicians in my family until I showed up. So it was a bit of a shock for all. But you know how music is. It finds you and it never lets go.
Yeah, without a doubt. So, talk to me about your beginnings as a professional. What were some of the shows? How did you kind of gain steam?
I initially was signed to Warner Brothers. That deal fell through because we just couldn't settle on a direction for the kind of music I could be making that we both agreed on. So when I was let go, I built a studio in my house, and I started songwriting. And when it was done, I shopped it around for a bit. No one seemed quite sure what to do with it. So I had the crazy idea, and this was 20 years ago, of putting the record out myself. I printed up 1,000 copies and released it, thinking, oh well, this will be something to do for a fun summer, and then I'll have to get back to doing something responsible and practical and all of that kind of stuff. But the album I put out did incredibly well. A lot of DJs picked it up, and it got a lot of great write-ups, and I started getting booked to do shows, and I haven't looked back since. So yeah, that's more of how I became, found myself being a professional musician, and I've released all of my albums independently since then, and built recording studios with the aim of, improving the art of making the records and getting them out and about.
What do you like best about being a musician? What's the biggest thrill?
I think it's the impact that you get to have in people's lives, and the connection, the strange connection between sitting in a room on your own and writing a song, and knowing that the more honest you are, the more personal you are, the more open, the more you open yourself up, and the more vulnerability that you express and put into the song, the more impact you're going to have, the more connection you're going to make with the audience, and the more visceral and profound that impact can be. So, people will often tell me that they had the music playing when their child was being born, or it was the music that they sent an elderly relative off to as they were being buried, or as they walked down the aisle with them. Having that kind of impact on people's personal and most powerful moments, it can be incredibly rewarding, without a shadow of a doubt. It's not something I imagined. When I first started off as a musician, I thought it was all about, being popular and having an ego and being appealing to the ladies and all that superficial stuff. And then you very quickly find that this is a primeval act that we human beings engage in, the arrangement of notes and words and emotions, and that it has an infinitely more important purpose.
What about mentors? Who's been some big inspirations that really taught you a lot? They're
personal mentors, so they're people like my dad, who was an incredibly principled man who, gave me, without knowing so, gave me some of the essentials for being a good artist, which is to be true to yourself and be honest, and to, and to not let your ego consume you destructively. And then there are the creative mentors, people like who essentially are heroes. So they're not mentors in that they haven't personally kind of conferred any wisdoms or adages on me, but I've followed what they've done musically. People like Donny Hathaway, Stevie Wonder, Miles Davis, Aretha Franklin. Oh God, there's so many. So many. Ray Charles, absolutely adored. Nat King Cole, my father played a lot of that when I was growing up, and so I consumed a lot of that. Nelson Riddle, amazing arranger, who arranged a lot of the Frank Sinatra and Nat King Cole tunes. Just a vast range of exceptionally gifted people because I didn't go to music school, I think what I found myself doing was, gleaning essentials from all the music that I loved and admired as I grew up.
So what was the first live jazz show you saw that made you think, man, this is something I might want to do with my life?
The first live jazz show, I think, was Nina Simone at Ronnie Scott's in the, I'd say, very early 80s. Yeah, I was at law school, and some friends and I decided we'd head out and catch a bit of Nina Simone, and she was just electrifying, and the musicianship and the stage craft. She had a quirky kind of way of delivering her songs that seemed very honest, very no frills kind of approach. Anyway, I was captivated by it, and and it made me aspire to doing some of that.
So, why do you love jazz?
I think it's the conversation. I think the conversation that jazz represents for me seems very. It's like a metaphor for life. If you're willing to listen and immerse yourself in what other people are saying, only then can you be truly responding when you respond. You can only be addressing what's being said if you've really listened to what's been said, and only in doing so can you make a worthwhile contribution that keeps the conversation going. And I like that about jazz, the fact that it's not the essence of it is not set piece. It's not a done deal. And so in being an artist, you avoid artifice. You pursue the truth of the moment, the honesty of the moment, and I like that. It's a thing that keeps me coming back to that way of expressing myself.
We're going to get back to the music. It's going to be something that will happen. I mean, the question is obviously when, but it will happen. And when we do, what do you hope both the audience and musician realizes? What revelations we get from this time away?
I think how ephemeral life and time and our connections are. I think we just can't keep barreling along, immersing ourselves in frivolity and hyperconsumption, and I think there's been a lot of wastage both in abstractions and actual things. There's been a lot of reaching for stuff that is only that doesn't fulfill on the deepest possible levels. I personally will be looking to express more things that are the truest possible things that I can find within myself to express about the human spirit, because that's the thing that's come to the fore. You know how we've all suddenly discovered that the true heroes in this world are the gentlest, most everyday people. They're your neighbor. They're nurses, and they've got kids and they've got a grandmother at home, but they know they took a Hippocratic oath that means that they have to go into a place where they haven't been adequately, looked after with the protective gear they need, the protective clothing they need. So all of that stuff, will linger on, I hope, and we'll all treat one another a bit more kindly, and hopefully that will be conveyed in a lot of the music that we make.
Right on. So everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your fans, but you're living your life. Who do you think you are?
Oh my good Lord, who do I think I am? I don't know. I think I'm a very, very decisive person. I think I launch myself into projects and I stay with them until they're done. I think I'm probably quite headstrong. I think I think I won't be shifted from a thought or a decision that I've made. I like to think I'm hardworking. I think I throw myself into stuff, and I don't back out. I don't back down from a job at hand. I know that I can also, in a crazy kind of in a contradicting way, I can also be quite lazy. I can dawdle a lot, and then I'll have amazing bursts of energy. This is like therapy. This is
wow.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I don't know. You'd have to ask someone who knew me quite well, I think.
Well, I think you answered it just fine. I appreciate you taking some time out today to talk with me, and stay safe. Good luck out there.
Oh, and the same to you, Joe. Thank you very much. What an interesting little chat. Thank you.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest singers in England, Nigeria, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. Thanks to Ola for his time, music, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.